Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the next ASP SEO webinar. It's a real privilege to be able to speak to everyone today. I'm not sure if you've been to any of our sessions before, but we try and make these nice and practical and some nice information which you can use and take away and start using straight away. So today we're going to be focusing in on Google Search Console. So I'm not sure if you know about Google Search Console, but hopefully by the end of today you've got a bit more information which will help you use some of the amazing insights in which it can give you to help improve your website's SEO. I'm not going to do death by PowerPoint today. I think as per one of our previous webinars, I'm going to use a Word document because I really want to dive into Google Search Console itself and go around it. So it's not screenshots, it's actual Google Search Console itself. So it's nice and practical for you. And I'm not sure if you've been to, as I say, any of the other webinars. You have, that's fantastic, because Google Search Console is great to give you insight into things that have actually happened on your website. So without further ado, let's crack on. So firstly, what is Google Search Console? There are many people I speak to who get it confused with Google Analytics, but it's actually a separate service. Google Search Console predominantly focuses on organic search performance. So it's looking at the queries and keywords that drive performance from Google to your website, whereas Google Analytics is that much broader service which provides details of all the different forms of website traffic, from email to PPC, you name it. So Google Search Console is very much the tool that you need if you're going to look to improve the organic search performance on your website. And the first thing you need to do, if you have not got it yet set up, it's Google Search Console here. Just so I don't let Bing feel left out, Google Search Console is obviously the Google version. There is a Bing version as well, and I'd certainly recommend setting this up, not because Bing will perform a large part of your organic search traffic, but it's just a great tool. Again, it's free and it provides a certain amount of additional functionality that Google Search Console doesn't. For example, it's got a web auditing tool in there which can help to look at the health of your website. So I'd certainly recommend setting up Bing Webmaster Tools as much as anything for the other tools that it provides. Whereas I appreciate the insights of it aren't going to be quite as much because, as we can see here, the global and UK market share of Bing is only about 4%, and therefore you won't get anywhere near as much insight from this as you will do from Google Search Console, but I'd certainly recommend setting that up. Okay, so I'm going to assume here that not everyone has currently got it set up. So to do that, you go into Google Search Console, and I'd recommend the domain route. You get richer information if you sign up under domain. To be able to do that, you need to be able to add some DNS records at your domain service. So if you're able to get access to that, the preferred route is the domain route, but a slightly easier route is the URL prefix route. There's a great wizard on Google Search Console to enable you to do that. So if you're unable to do the domain route, you can't get access to your DNS settings, do the URL prefix route. It's not quite as rich information, but it will do the job. So either way, the best thing is to firstly get it set up. And I'd recommend getting it set up as soon as possible, because as soon as it's set up, you'll start collecting data, and the more data, the better, and you can start making good decisions in relation to the information that you have. So this just gives a screenshot of if you need to verify via your domain provider. In this example, it's GoDaddy, and it's quite user-friendly and gives detailed instructions on how you actually do that. It's worth noting that once Google Search Console set up, it will take a few days to a week for you to start actually seeing data within the platform. So just give it some time, but it will start showing. Whilst you're in the setup mode, it's certainly also worth linking Google Search Console with Google Analytics. This will help bring more information from from Google Search Console into Google Analytics, and give Analytics some richer information, richer data, and especially if you are doing Google Ads, This again will give richer information within Google Analytics, from which Google Ads can therefore make its decisions and do its AI clever processes on. So you do that within admin, and then there's a Google Search Console links section down there. So I'd certainly recommend linking Google Search Console and Google Analytics, and it's a 2-minute job. So just to make it nice and easy, you just need to make sure that you're logged in under the same Google account for both. So Google Search Console is absolutely key for understanding your audience and your search performance. It really starts to show the search terms that people use to find your website, whether they be branded terms, whether informational terms, whether it's buying tickets, how to get to the event. So this will tell you the exact keywords and queries that people use to find your website. And just to broaden the topic a little bit, this is incredibly important, because as an aside, there's a global trend to start thinking about privacy online, and we will have all seen with Google Consent Mode 2 how the cookies, there's been increased requirements in relation to that was implemented in March. So therefore, the amount of data in which the advertisers, digital platforms such as Google and Meta can actually collect from you and I who are browsing around the internet is gradually reducing to increase our privacy. So from a privacy side, obviously that's a positive thing in terms of you're an actual advertiser, but it actually means is that there's less information available to you to be able to start hyper targeting your ads. So fundamentally, it will start to make ads a little bit less effective. And this is where SEO and the data that you're going to be getting from Google Search Consoles becomes increasingly important, because whilst we're getting reduced amounts of information and data being kept about us from, to protect our privacy, we're still searching online. And therefore, if you have a website which is highly optimized for a large number of keywords and topics, Google therefore knows a lot more about your audience, your website, than it would do. And therefore, not only will this obviously drive you more organic traffic, but at the same time, it will also help to improve your PPC performance at the same time as well. So I can't understate how important that is, and this isn't going away. This is very much, as we move forward, data privacy is only going to increase. So therefore, the having SEO performance of your website is going to be increasingly important. So before I just quickly dive into the online platform, I think it's worth just quickly covering off a couple of SEO basics, because it will make the platform give it a little bit more sense when we're going through some of the sub tabs that's available within Google Search Console. Firstly, I just wanted to address the whole concept of crawling and indexing. So Google, when it comes to assess your website, first thing it does is what's called crawling. So a computer program called a bot will come onto your site, and it will go through all the different web pages. It will then start to analyze all of the content onto that page. It will then, those that it feels are good quality and are relevant, it will then store within its index, a bit like an index for a library. And then once it's stored in the index, it will analyze those pages, and it will start to then look at how they can then rank those pages for certain keywords. So then when you type something in, it will look within its index, and then with all the different factors that it looks at when it comes to ranking, it will then put your page within a certain number within its ranking, so whether it's on the first page or the second page, etc. But crawling and indexing are very important, because if Google can't actually get onto your website and it can't actually see the pages, therefore you have no chance of performing well in search, and it will hugely impact your SEO performance. And Google Search Console is your window into seeing how well your site is being crawled and indexed, and I'll go through that in detail on the actual platform itself. Okay, so enough preview. Let's now go to Google Search Console itself. By the way, if you have any questions, please fire them through. Katie will be sending them through to me as they come in. So if anything's not clear, please just fire through a question. So Here is the Google Search Console dashboard. Obviously, the very first thing that you'll see is performance. And to be honest, this is probably the main area that most of us will look most of the time, because it's in here that you will gain insight into pages, keywords, and how well your website is performing or not, as the case may be. So what I'm going to do is firstly do a quick walk through all the different sections that we have here. And then I'm going to come back to performance at the end, and then talk through in a little bit more detail and a little more granular some actual key insights you can get out from the performance graphs we have here. But firstly, let's just do a little walkthrough of the platform and just and see what we have. So as I say, we've got an overview here with just performance. So this is just clicks. So you can see just roughly over the last 3 months how clicks are performing. Remember before I mentioned indexing, and this is a very quick overview of the number of pages that you have in the index and Google's index and the pages that you don't. So there's a little overview there. Experience, this is basically website speed, and that's what Core Web Vitals are. So we can go into have a look a bit more in a second on those. Enhancements, this is from what's called schema code that you have within the HTML behind the scenes within your website, and the certain elements that makes Google's job of understanding your website and the elements within it a bit easier, as well as you can add certain things which may actually appear within search. I'm going to talk about event schema, and there's a few other schemas as well which can actually appear within Google search results itself, and when I come on to that I'll show you some examples. So that's the overview, but let's go into the performance page itself, and just to quickly walk through this. So first of all, we have your total clicks, and this is a click is what you'd imagine it to be. So that's when someone will do a search online. And when you actually click on a result, that is a click. To go back to impressions, so just to explain what that is, we go back to our Google search here. An impression is when someone sees a result. So let's say I've done my search for AI and there's nothing here which I'm particularly interested in looking at. And as I'm scrolling through, all of these are impressions, but they're not clicks because I haven't actually clicked on them. So impressions are good to know because they show that you're actually being seen, but they also highlight the fact you're not actually being clicked on. You'd always expect impressions to be higher than clicks. We've also got another couple of metrics here, and we've got click-through rate. So this gives an indication of the number of times that people see the result. So for example here, versus the number of times people actually click on it. And this starts to paint a picture as to, is what you have written here, for example, is that enticing for people to click onto? So I'm not going to go through that in detail today about how to write what's called your meta title here. And we have another webinar on that, on page optimization. So please feel free to check that out. But fundamentally, it gives an indication if your click-through rate is low, maybe there's something wrong with your meta title here that needs to be written a little bit better to align with the search that someone has put into Google at the top. Average position. So this is the position of your result within Google. Now it's said average because depending on whether you're logged in, depending on what part of the world or country, etc., in which you're located, the device you're on, each one of those search queries, your web page could have a different result. So this is an average across all of those different factors. So that's why it is an average position. So this is overall for the whole site. And then you can click down and start to see, initially, you know, we're looking at queries. And these are the queries that drove people to this website over the last 3 months. You can change the timescale here. And you also can compare it, let's say, for the last 3 months versus the previous 3 months. And you can start to get a bit more analysis here as to whether things are growing or declining, etc. Now, remember I said a little bit earlier about the amount of data that's being collected from each one of us as we go around the internet is gradually reducing because of data privacy laws. Well, if we look in the queries here, each one of these starts to give Google an indication of what your website is about. So the topics, so for example, if you look in here, are the queries just your brand name or just related to your brand name? But if that's the case, Google has very little information to actually know about what your website is about. It may be obvious. You think that within your sector that you cover all of these different subsectors, but for Google and people looking online, it may not be obvious. And you can start to see fairly quickly here by browsing through the queries in which people are finding your website, the topics and the key terms and phrases that people are finding your site. So ideally what we're looking to find here would be obviously your brand. We're looking for the key top level terms that might define your type of event or your type of show. So for example, AI show, AI events, that type of thing. But then also we want to start finding things which may include some of the subtopics. So whether that be machine learning or some of the various other subtopics that might be within and relevant to your event. You might also expect to find names of people who could be prominent speakers, maybe exhibitors, and also maybe some more informational searches that might relate to some blog posts that you've had written or a session that you've had transcribed and then summarized onto the site. So the more information you start to get on, as you can see, you will start to find within Google Search Console, the more queries that you'll start to see here, and you're giving Google a lot more information about your website, its audience, and what your expertise is, and this fundamentally will then help your PPC campaign if you also do PPC ads too. So let's go back to just the last 3 months. So as I say, we have all of the different queries down here, so we can see in the last 3 months how many people say clicked on this one. And if we actually click on this one, if you go to pages, you can therefore see actually which pages also got rankings for that keyword. So just to show the sort of information you can get from that. If you exit out, we go back to now just a list of pages and how they're performing. So within search itself, we can see which pages are performing the best. And then if we click on one of those pages and queries, we can then specifically see all of the different queries and which that page is ranking for. So you can start to see how, especially if you've optimized a page for certain keywords. By the way, if you do want to optimize a page, I think I mentioned this just slightly earlier, we have done a webinar on page optimization and keyword research. So please go and check that out. And then you can find out how to optimize a page for certain keywords. But on this particular page, we can see it ranks for these sorts of keywords, which is really useful to know as you're monitoring progress of a page, because obviously you want to see the keywords you're optimizing for actually show up. And then you can start to see clicks and impressions. And if you want to add in this other data, you just click on these elements here. And then you can see that click-through rate and position starts to come through here. So we can see page performance. As I said, I'm going to come in at the end of the session with some more information about some real key insights we can get from this performance section. So I'll go into that in a bit more detail later on after I've done this walkthrough. We can see the countries in which people are coming from, different devices, mobile, desktop, tablet. Search appearance, so these are specific special elements which, for example, in this case, they're product snippets. So, for example, if you do a search on Nike trainers, you'll see sometimes product listings at the top, and that's because Google can see that that's an actual product and will show that up. And this is just showing particular special results like that that you're appearing for. And then you can just arrange by date how you've performed on particular dates, which may be important if you're looking specifically on a granular basis leading up to an event. Okay, so that was a quick walkthrough of performance. Now let's have a look at URL inspection. So what this is let's just find that website. we're analysing from here. So by inspecting a URL, we can get a little bit of information about it. Firstly, we can see, having inspected this, that this page is on Google. So that's obviously a good thing. Let's say, for example, we've just added a new blog post or a new page, or we've just relaunched the website. Sometimes going into this tool, pasting that in and going request indexing can be a way to get Google to see your page quicker. So if you want it to rank quicker or get it noticed quicker, that's a great way of doing it. So a bit of a top tip on that. So we can see that the page is indexed and when it was found. This was the mobile version of the site was indexed first. And we can see various other elements on the page that it's being recognized for, and it will tell you if there are any problems. So if there are any red marks here, it will say that there's any problems with the coding of the page. So it's quite a useful tool. It's not really something that you would use en masse, but especially, like I say, if you've relaunched the website and want to put the home page in here, or let's say you've written and launched a new page, this can be quite a good way of just getting that page picked up and seen a lot more quickly. So remember earlier on we spoke about indexing. So if we go down to this section here, this is where we start to get a view on how many on the index of your website. So how many of your pages do Google see versus how many of the pages are actually in its index versus pages that are not in its index. Now, please note that the pages that aren't in this index will never show up within Google search. It's only the pages that are indexed that will show up. So as a general rule, typically you want more pages on your website to show up rather than not. But having said that, there may be very, very good reasons as to why some of your pages you don't want them to show up. So let's say, for example, you have a login page, or you have certain pages which are specifically for your exhibitors that you don't necessarily just want Joe Public to be able to find on Google. Maybe you don't want those to show up. Or maybe you've just got 100 pages which just include logos or images, and which they don't add a lot of value. So those could be other pages on which you don't want to show in Google's index. So with this tab here, we start to get a view as to certain elements and reasons as to why pages may not be showing up. So we can firstly have a look at the pages that are indexed, showing here. So you can just double check that they're all the ones that you would expect to see and all the sort of high value ones. So you can just have a quick look through all of those. But to be honest, it's normally the pages that aren't indexed that you want to check through. So as I said, there could be some very good reasons as to why some of your pages you don't want indexed. So what I'll do is just look through all of these and see if there are any pages you expect to be in the index that aren't. Okay, so just to go through some of these. So why a page would not be indexed. So in this example, there's a redirect. So a 301 redirect has been set up from an old URL to a new URL. Now, obviously, you don't want the old URL within the index. So there's actually no problem here. This is actually correct. So pages with redirects, again, you just want to double check that there's no funny things going on here, but generally that's absolutely fine. This is a redirect because there's no www in front, so that's redirecting to the www version. Excluded by no index tag. So within any web page, you have or with most content management systems, you have the opportunity to do what's called no index a page. You can do that show off within the ASP platform by the SEO settings, and there's a no index option when you go into a page within the SEO settings there. And what this will do is make sure that that page does not appear within Google. Now, as I said, that there could be some real legitimate reasons for that. Maybe it's a certain login page. Maybe it's a page that you have just literally copied from somewhere else, and therefore your page doesn't deserve to be indexed because it's somewhere else that page is the original. But it's worth just having a quick look in here and just double checking that there are no pages in here which are no indexed, which should be indexed. Now, these all appear to be, because this is a WordPress platform, these kind of feed pages, and that all appears to be correct, that they are excluded by no index. But it's worth just having a quick look through there and make sure that you aren't excluding any pages which actually you do want to show. Sometimes you may have a page in which you want it to show, but there's somewhere else there's an original, and you can do that by setting up what's called a canonical tag. So an example of this would be you have an exhibitor in which the content they put on their exhibitor profile is exactly the same as what they have on their own website. So what they could do is set up a canonical tag on their exhibitor profile and say that the version on their own website is the original. So again, these pages will not show up on your website, and it's worth just double checking on here that there's nothing here that looks a bit strange, where it's saying somewhere else is the original. Okay, so there's something on your website called the robots.txt file, and what this is when Google first comes onto the page, it's a bit like the door, in which you either allow Google in, or you stop it off, or you can block certain sections of the site. So for example, if you go /robots.txt, this is what the file looks like, but in essence, all that's doing is blocking certain sections of the website. And again, there's very legitimate reasons to do that. Maybe there's some galleries you want to get blocked, or again, some login pages, etc. So you want to just have a quick check in here and make sure that there's nothing that's being blocked here that you actually want to show up within Google itself. So again, just making sure there aren't any problems. Not found is when you have a link from one page to another, but the other page you're linking to doesn't exist. So this is not only an issue for Google when it's crawling around your website, but also it's an issue for users because they'll click on a link and they'll go to a 404 page. So these certainly need to be fixed, and something needs to be sorted out. So basically, if you go in here and you can find where the issues are, and then you can go back to your website and fix those broken links. So those are typically things that you will need to sort out. And in terms of fixing those links, there are two ways to do it. Either go into the incorrect link and correct it, or what you can do, if it's, let's say, going to this one URL and you need to, actually it's been updated to a new one, you can set up a 301 redirect. So the link to the incorrect URL then automatically gets bumped onto the correct URL. That's the quickest and easiest way of doing it. You have to bear in mind that over time, this can create a large number of 301 redirects, which isn't typically best practice when it comes to SEO. So you just have to balance off the short-term gain of making it quick and easy to do it versus the longer-term gain if you get more and more of these 301 redirects. But those are the two typical solutions to enable that to happen. Other things I'll look at down here will be things such as crawled, not indexed. So these are pages in which Google knows about, but currently it hasn't actually put them in its index. And there may be a variety of reasons for this. It may consider them to be low quality. It might consider them as being duplicate URLs with sort of funny parameters on at the end, like this one here. What I'm looking for here is pages in which I think should be within Google's index, but then aren't. So for example, this one here, may go into that page, a bit more analysis, and first step would be to manually submit it like we did before. So I could grab that, pop that in the top here, and we could request indexing like that. So that's one way of doing it. Or you could also manually review the page and see if its optimization needs to be improved at all. That could be another way of doing it. Okay, so are there any other reasons why? So we've looked at crawled, currently not indexed, as and seeing if there are any issues in here. And again, discovered currently not indexed, similar item as before, just need to have a look through here and start to have a look as to, are there any pages in here that you want to get indexed and start to perform well in Google, but that currently aren't. And this sort of indicates if there's an issue that needs sorting out. So if it's all fine that they're not indexed because they shouldn't be, then you don't have an issue. So the main thing I'm looking at here is, again, so pages that are indexed, these are the ones that can actually perform in Google and be found in search and start to drive traffic. And the not indexed pages are ones that will not perform. And once you then can look through these reports here and just double check there are no pages that you want to perform that aren't. And if there are pages that you find, this then is the starter for then trying to root out what you can do to fix that. So whether it's a low quality page that needs to be improved, or if it's set to no index when it shouldn't be, that type of thing. So it's a very, very useful report. Maybe something that doesn't need to be looked at all the time, but certainly periodically to make sure that there aren't any issues that are causing your site not to work properly when it should be. Video pages. So if you have a page in which contains a YouTube video or another embedded video, then you can define that within Google. The best way to do that is via video schema, in which that is provided by the ASP platform. Other platforms don't necessarily do that, like this one here. And it's quite a nice thing to be able to tell Google that there is a video, because every now and again, if you do a search, it hasn't come up here, but you'll see video results. So if it's you have that schema on the page, you have the opportunity of showing up in Google with those. So if you imagine, so Google comes onto your site, it's going to crawl it. The first thing it sees is what I described before, this robots.txt file, which lets you through some doors, it blocks you from other doors. But still, it'd be really helpful for Google to actually have a map of your website and all of the different URLs on there and when they were last updated. And that's exactly what these XML sitemaps are. So you find your sitemap quite easily. If you go to, and then you go to /sitemap.xml. So it's actually good here that this is showing up an error, because this shows a problem that needs to be solved, and often you only find that by typing that in. This is not an ASP website, fortunately. If you go onto an ASP site, if you type in sitemap.xml, you'll find your list of all the URLs on your website and when they were last updated. To show you that on ASP events. Oops. It should be showing this, but maybe I found an issue. Oh, so there we go, didn't spell it correctly. So here, so as you can imagine, so Google's coming onto the site. You've put into Google Search Console now your sitemap, which is up here, and you're now giving it a big long list of all the different URLs on the site, which makes its life much, much easier in terms of finding all of the different pages that you have on your website. If you didn't have this, Google will then have to try and crawl all of the different links on your site and the menus and everything, which makes its life a lot harder. Whereas if you have this, which is automatically updated when you update a page, add a page, delete a page, Google can then see all of the different pages that you have much more easily. So you get your sitemap here. If you go to sitemaps here, I'm not actually going to submit it, but you simply add it here and then you press submit, and that's all you need to do to add your sitemaps. If you notice on the ASP one, this is a sitemap of sitemaps. So for example, this is various media. We've got exhibitors, themes, integrations, clients. So we can actually, I personally like to make Google's job even easier and add all of these ones individually. And as you can see, you have all the different clients and the date in which it was updated. So I personally like to add all of them individually just to make its job a little bit easier. So that's sitemaps. Let's say you have a page that's got some incorrect information on it and you need it removed. Well, the way to do that is here, in which you get the URL, you put it into the top, and then you press submit. It says temporary removal, so this is the quick way to get the URL removed from Google's index, and the way to then make sure that it doesn't appear back is to go back and either delete the URL or make it no index, as mentioned before. Just an aside, if we go on to the show off platform, I'll quickly show you how to make something, how you can make something no index. It's something in which most people don't do, but it's actually very useful to be able to do this. You go to edit page, and then we've got our page options, SEO, and then down here we have set up index follow meta tags. We can make it no index here. So if this particular page you definitely didn't want showing up in Google's index, you can set that there, submit, and then save. See, I'm not going to do that. Okay, we now have our page experience section, which is basically website speed. So this gives an overview of the two elements, which are core web vitals, which again is what Google calls basically for website speed, and it's giving an overview of how the website's performing on both mobile and on desktop, and showing up if there are any particular issues. And you can have an overview here, and if you want to see more detail, you can have a look here. If you want to analyze your page, a particular page in more detail, Google provides, let's say there were some issues being shown up here, you can go into Page Speed Insights, which is this tool here, and then this will give you a bit more information about the page, how it's performing, and if there are problems that need to be solved, you can find those down here. So fundamentally, in Google Search Console, you can see that speed Google does want to know about, and presents how your website is performing here, and will highlight if there are any issues. We then have HTTPS, which is fundamentally, is your website secure, and noting down the secure pages. Most websites these days are secure. Certainly if you have an ASP website, it will be, but this will highlight if there are any particular issues. I wouldn't expect there to be honest. We briefly mentioned enhancements before. So what enhancements are particular bits of code we call schema code, which is added into the HTML of your website, and in some cases it just makes Google's job in terms of understanding your website a little bit easier, and in other cases actually provides some bits of content which can actually be added into search results. So to give an example of this, we go to the baby show. We can see further down we have this box here, which is events, and this is created from event schema. So this is some schema code which is on the baby show website, which Google has seen and is now putting into this special section here. So if you have an ASP website, you need to make sure that you go into, I'll show you where that is. We go into settings, SEO settings, and then we have event schema. So we want to make sure we have yes. Obviously we aren't an event, so therefore I have that disabled. And then in all these other fields here, you just need to make sure that these are all filled in, and you will have your event schema all ready to go, just like the baby show here. So that's very useful to know if you have an enhancement. So the predominant ones that you'll need to have for an event website obviously is event schema. We're in the process of also, it's not there yet, but ASP are also currently in the process of adding what will be called person schema. So for all of your speakers, etc., that can be attached to them to give their profile pages a little bit more prominence by adding this person schema. So this will be added in due course, hopefully this year. Just to go to some of these other sections, we have manual actions. So if your website, for example, was completely written by AI without any human impact, input, sorry, this would be against Google's terms and conditions, your website could be banned and get a manual action, and you'll be noted here. So that's what this signifies. Typically, you have to do quite bad things to get actually banned from Google, so I wouldn't expect to see that. But if you have, you would see that in there. Obviously, no issues here. And security issues often relate to if your website has been hacked. So let's say you've had some malware introduced, or you've had some other form of hack, and this will often show up here. So again, I wouldn't expect you to see anything in here, but just so you know what these elements are. Legacy tools, I wouldn't bother with those. They're all by the by now. Let's just quickly talk about links. So links, there are two forms. There'll be a link from someone else's website to yours. Maybe you have one of your exhibitors linking to your event, maybe one of your speakers, maybe a sponsor, maybe a partner company you work for. And these are actually incredibly valuable because they are starting to show Google that you have prominence within the industry, and the more prominent other websites that link through to yours, that actually really helps the standing of your website. So what this section of Google Search Console does is say the pages in which you have links to, and then you have pages in which you have where you have top links from. So it certainly gives some insight of what your current links from other websites are. And it's certainly worth bearing in mind that when you're dealing with exhibitors or speakers or other companies in your day-to-day processes, actually getting a relevant link from another company's website through to yours for your SEO is actually a valuable thing, and this is where you'll start to see them showing up here. So those are what you call external links when it's from another website through to your website, but also you have internal links. So as you go from the home page to a sub page, and all of the links between the different pages on your site also actually add quite a bit of value. So the pages that have the most number of links to them internally are what Google would typically see as the most important page. So you'd expect to see the home page, as you do here, with the most number of internal links. So this is important to know. So let's say, for example, you look here and you see that there's just a random page has the most number of internal links. This could actually be hurting your website's SEO. You kind of want to rejig that. So your most important pages, maybe your home page, ticket page, contact us, exhibitor, all of your different important pages, you want to make sure that those have the most number of internal links. And these internal links are from main menu, sub menu, footer menu, and from other pages. So that's where they come from. So it provides some great insight actually as to what Google is seeing as some of the most important pages on your site. Top linking text. So this is an indication of the anchor text. So if the bit of text that people are clicking on to link through to your site. Again, it just gives some nice insight into what is being used, and if anything funny is going on. When I say funny is going on, because what people used to do was to go out to other websites and pay for them to link back to your site, and then sometimes you would get spam sites linked to your site too. So by going into this report, you can see actually let's go to the linking sites. If there are funny sites up here that you didn't expect to see links from, it starts to indicate if people are trying to spam your site by linking to it. And if you have funny text down here that you didn't expect to see, this may also indicate a similar thing. Generally nowadays that tactic doesn't work anymore, so I wouldn't expect to see it. But if you do have some funny text showing up here, it may indicate that someone is trying to spam your site, and there may be an issue that just requires a bit more investigation. Okay, we have the settings section here, which may seem pretty innocuous. It's where we talk about user permissions and all that sort of thing, but it also has two fantastic reports under the crawling section. So if we go into the robot.txt file one, so this is basically just double checking that your robot.txt file is working correctly, and it is. One of the quickest ways to completely destroy your SEO on a website is to block Google. So, and which you can do here, and that will be indicated in this report here. We also have crawl stats, so we can see is Google coming onto your site and crawling it regularly. So as much as anything, all I'm looking for here are some relatively flat lines when it comes to the graphs, that there's nothing funny going on. And as you can see, they're all pretty flat. And most of the pages are okay. We've got some redirects. What we're looking, as I say, is for some fairly flat lines. What you find if your website is hacked, as which client I was working on a few years ago site was, suddenly you see a huge spike in the Google's crawling of the site, and that indicates something strange or something funny is going on. After a website has moved also from another platform, say to ASP, and we go through a website migration just to make sure that things are working as they should be after the move. We'll also have a look at this, and just to make sure that the new site is being crawled correctly and there's nothing strange going on. And any other major change to the website, I'll also have a look in the crawl stats just to make sure that the website seems to be getting crawled okay and there's nothing funny going on. Okay, so that's a walkthrough of the platform. Hopefully it's fairly easy and intuitive. It's certainly much easier to use, I'm sure you'll find, than Google Analytics, and it's relatively obvious as to what you need to do, but where we find real insight from it and how it can really help to improve your SEO performance is now starting to look at this performance section. So I'll just quickly go back to you'll have there's a big copy of these notes will be available afterwards, in which I've gone through these various settings. So what are some of the key insights that we can get from Google Search Console? So I've spoken before about, obviously we can do an overview of the queries and keywords and see if it's, for example, just brand that you're ranking for. Do you have other topics you're ranking for? So it's certainly a great way to start seeing how overall you're performing. But let's say you have just added a new page. So you can go onto pages here and you want to see how well that page is performing. And all you can do is you can start to scroll down and maybe click on that page, and then you can start to see from the work that you've done, and maybe when you launch the page, how well it's now performing. I'd always wait, if I'm honest, a few weeks, a month at least, before you start looking into here, because pages typically don't start performing immediately. It does depend very much on your website. If you have a brand new site, it will take a page typically a lot longer to start performing in search compared with if your website is years old and you have thousands of visitors already. So looking into this page, so we can firstly see, are there clicks and how many? And we can also now start to look at, are you ranking for the right sorts of keywords in which you have optimized the page for? And you can start looking down here. Now, sometimes you'll look down here and there could be some funny words in which you're ranking for, or they may all be wrong. So it may indicate that something has gone wrong in that whole process of optimizing the page. Maybe a mistake was made in the page title, or a mistake, or maybe the H1 heading was missed out, or various other things. Because I do appreciate that sometimes updating a web page can involve many people, many processes, and sometimes things can get missed out. So then when the page is launched, it isn't actually how it was intended to be. Well, this is where Search Console comes into its own, because you can go back and look at the page, see how it's operating, and see is it performing as you feel it should be. Okay, another way in which you can use Search Console is to find pages in which there's opportunity to improve in relation to some of the keyword opportunities you've identified. So the way I like to do this, if I go onto position and pages, and let's say yeah, I've identified a page in which I want to improve the rankings of that page for a certain group of keywords, and often I'll look for position which is in kind of positions 10 to 20. So this is showing a page has some level of performance, but it needs to be improved. If I go into this further, I can see that this page is performing for some keywords. You can expand it out here, by the way. It's performing for some, but it's not performing for others. But overall, this page, it looks like there is opportunity for improvement to optimize it for some of my target keywords. So like I say, it's easier to optimize an existing page for keywords if they're closely related, rather than to start up a new page. So that's what I do. I'd look for a page in which is ranking probably positions 10 to 20 that relates to the keywords I'm looking to optimize for, then optimize that page, and hopefully that page will perform more quickly and better than if you'd set up a brand new one. So that's another great way of using the insights here. Final ways I'd use insights, again, is just to flick through and make sure that there's nothing strange going on. So again, if there are keywords coming up here for completely irrelevant keywords, or you have really not important keywords coming up here that, maybe it's a particular speaker or a blog post that was written that again, that won't really attract relevant visitors that are performing very well. It just highlights that maybe you need to start working on some of the other keywords to get them to perform a little bit better. And the same with pages. Let's have a look through here and see, are there pages that, which are performing best and which aren't, and does this provide opportunity to optimize some of these pages so they can improve. So in terms of optimizing a website, I will use Google Search Console extensively. I'd certainly recommend using it as part of your reporting. I will look at this for most websites if we're doing SEO on the site at least once a month. If we're doing an SEO migration where we're moving from one platform to another, or there's major updates to a website, I'll be looking at this almost on a daily basis, just to make sure that the site's being crawled, the site's being indexed, and everything is as it should be. So it's an incredibly valuable tool, and it's often within here that you'll see problems and you'll pick those problems up. Whereas if you didn't look here, you can have big issues that can go unnoticed for a long time. So it's certainly worth just periodically, if you can, logging into Google Search Console, firstly finding out what the problems are, then delving a little bit deeper, and really now then start to identify some of the opportunities to help your website grow. So I think I've covered all of the content here. I'm not sure if any questions at the moment, so that's absolutely fine. It gives me plenty of chance then to talk about some things we can offer you guys. So firstly, offering for the first three, a free 30-minute Google Search Console consultation. So if by me going through Google Search Console has whetted your appetite and you'd like to get a bit more insight into what's shown on your website data, drop me a line, and the first three people will get a free consultation. It would be better, to be honest, and time is much better spent if Google Search Console is already set up. So if you haven't got one set up, go away and do that first. So it's already set up and it already has a few months worth of data, because with that data in, we can then start to gain insights and actually give some valuable feedback into how your website can be improved. So yeah, please tap me up and book in your free consultation. Secondly, in terms of these webinars, we're going to be taking a break over the summer. So we'll be restarting again in the autumn. So if you have any subjects or topics, anything relating to SEO, I've covered a fair amount of stuff on AI and how that can be used on your website, as well as conversion rate optimization, user experience. So anything relating to that, data, using Google Analytics, etc., etc. Drop us a line with your suggestions, and we can then book some webinars in the autumn. And yeah, if you've got some feedback on that, that would be great. And if this has whetted your appetite in terms of learning about SEO, we have our second SEO masterclass starting in November, in which we can run through all of the things in which I and we will do on a website, and on a very specifically an event website, and how to optimize it so it performs best in search. Very practical, very little theory, a lot of practice. We'll be getting you doing homework, setting up a web page, optimizing a web page, So it's and this is very, very specific, event focused, rather than just kind of general SEO. So this brings me to the end. I hope that was helpful. There will be a recording of this available. We'll also be doing a supporting blog post, etc. And I look forward to hearing how Google Search Console has helped to improve the SEO of all of your websites. Thanks very much.